Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, the San Diego School Board votes on a contract to save nearly 1,500 jobs. And a man who supported California's same-sex marriage ban is changing his stance. He says it's time to stop fighting same-sex marriage. A San Diego hospital tested a new procedure to help people with high blood pressure without using drugs. And one of Shakespeare's greatest villains comes to life on stage in San Diego, making Richard III resonate for audiences who've seen the downfall of dictators like Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Peggy Pico. The final count is in at last from the primary election, and the tally shows a very close finish between mayoral candidates Carl DeMaio and Bob Filner. DeMaio leads Filner by less than 1 percentage point, a margin of 2,300 votes out of more than 240,000 votes cast on June 5th. The Registrar of Voters still has to certify the results. Trustees of the San Diego Unified School District have approved a deal to save nearly 1,500 jobs. The teachers union and the district agreed to pay a plan deferring pay raises and cutting 5 days out of next year's school year.
The real winners in this are the students of San Diego. We are going to have reasonable class sizes next year in our San Diego Unified School District by calling back all of our teachers, our nurses, and our counselors. Yes?
The current plan assumes Governor Jerry Brown's tax initiative passes in November. If it doesn't, the school year could be shortened by up to 14 days. The drive to tax cigarettes by an extra $1 a pack has failed by 0.6%. Opponents of the measure included tobacco companies who spent nearly 4 times as much as supporters on commercials such as this one, which claimed the measure was a government boondoggle and questioned whether the tax money would be spent in cancer research in California or elsewhere. Prop 29 supporters conceded defeat today, though one said the vote was so close it could come up again, perhaps, in the state legislature. A man who testified in support of California's same-sex marriage ban now says it's time to accept same-sex marriage. David Blankenhorn was one of 2 witnesses who favored the ban during a landmark trial on the constitutionality of Proposition 8. Today, in an opinion piece in the New York Times, he says, quote, "Whatever one's definition of marriage, legally recognizing gay and lesbian couples and their children is a victory for basic fairness. Instead of fighting gay marriage, I'd like to help build new coalitions, bringing together gays who want to strengthen marriage with straight people who want to do the same." The column is unlikely to have any legal impact on the fight over Prop 8. The ban's backers say they're taking it to the U.S. Supreme Court. Democratic lawmakers have drafted a bill to regulate the mortgage industry. The bill would bar banks from foreclosing on homes while modifications are pending. It would also let homeowners sue lenders who violate state law, and it would require lenders to give borrowers a single point of contact. The plan is an extension of a national settlement that put new restrictions on the 5 largest U.S. banks. The legislature will take it up next week. Nearly 1 in 4 adults in the U.S. have hypertension or high blood pressure. It's called the silent killer because it typically has no symptoms, and if untreated, it can lead to a heart attack or stroke or other life-threatening problems. But medication doesn't always work on everyone. That's why Scripps Clinic in La Jolla is doing a clinical trial on a new procedure that jolts the kidneys into controlling high blood pressure. 81-year-old Vivian Chandler works out at the Scripps Health Cardiac Gym to try and lower her blood pressure.
When I first come in the door, the first thing I do is I have my blood pressure taken, and then at the very end of my 2-hour workout, I have the blood sugar, and it's always a little bit lower, thank goodness.
Chandler is among the 1 in 10 adults in the U.S. whose extremely high pressure does not respond to medication. It's called resistant hypertension.
This is dangerously high.
She hopes to be in a new clinical trial at the Scripps Clinic in La Jolla to test an experimental procedure called renal denervation.
This catheter is called a simplicity catheter, and we're finding that we can lower the blood pressure on average about 30 points. It's really a huge impact. from a single procedure.
The 1-hour procedure is a lot like an angiogram for the heart. A tiny tube is thread from the groin into the kidney's arteries. The tip is then heated up to disrupt nerves that misregulate blood pressure. Kidneys are considered the most important organ in blood pressure regulation.
The kidneys actually play a central role in the control of blood pressure, in part because it controls volume, in part because it produces hormones that control blood pressure, and in part because it sends signals to the brain that then sends signals to the rest of the body to increase blood pressure.
Chandler says lowering her blood pressure is just one more step in reaching her ultimate goal, a long and healthy life.
You know, I'm trying to shoot for 120. From 81 to 120 is my goal.
Let's hope she makes it. Now, Medtronic, the maker of the device, is sponsoring the study. More information about the blood pressure clinical trial in San Diego is on our website, kpbs.org. A new report says the sea level is rising along the California coast, and it could go up by 1/2 foot in less than 20 years. The National Research Council says sea levels are rising because the oceans are warming and because ice sheets and glaciers are melting. The researchers say the rising levels will cut into seaside cliffs and drive back sand dunes. They say they expect levels to go up an average of 3 feet in the next 90 years. The report was commissioned by states and federal agencies to help them plan for erosion.
I miss you, Papa. I miss you too.
A big welcome home today for the amphibious ready group led by the USS Macon Island. 1,700 sailors are back in San Diego after a 7-month deployment in the Western Pacific and the Middle East. 2,100 Marines are also home. The ships dropped them off at Camp Pendleton yesterday.
This week in the news, all things justice as the state takes an axe to San Diego's courts, and more questions about a newly elected judge. Does it matter whether Gary Kreep is a birther? I'll ask the panel. But first, San Diego Superior Court faces more than a 20% cut to its budget. Joining me to explain what that will mean is UT San Diego reporter Greg Moran and KPBS senior news editor Mark Sauer. Thank you both for being here.
Pleasure.
Greg, let's start with the court now. What is the current budget and what will that look like after this cut?
The court's budget for fiscal year 11-12 was $190 million. At the end of fiscal year 13-14, it'll be $150 million. So that's pretty significant. They have to cut $14 million from this year. It'll be $26 million next year.
Okay, so let's have a look at the impact now. We're going to put up some graphics here for the people at home in terms of what specifically will be impacted.
They're going to close courtrooms, particularly downtown criminal courtrooms and one civil courtroom. They're going to, any probate issue that you have, which is wills, estates, and things like that, in North County Vista, you'll have to come downtown. Same for a juvenile dependency, that's the child welfare system, foster care, and things like that will also be closed. There's a small branch court out in Ramona, which people out there really like because it's convenient, going to be dark, and they will have to come downtown, and they're going to lay off at least 75 people, perhaps more. Some of those cuts, and then in the following year, in 2014, actually the bite is much worse. Much larger number of courtrooms, about 30 courtrooms. Some of those are probably going to be courtrooms that are now staffed by courtroom commissioners, court commissioners. These are called subordinate judicial officers. They're not judges, although they do a lot of judging. They're appointed by the bench to serve, and they handle high-volume things like traffic, small claims, unlawful detainer, landlord-rent disputes. They're all going to, very likely going to be losing their jobs, and those courtrooms would be closed, and on and on. And the business offices in El Cajon and Chula Vista will also be closed. So if you have to file any papers, take out anything, you're going to have to come downtown. So it's a very significant bite on just the functioning and the operations of the court system.
Now, the state makes the cut, but who ultimately decides how they're going to implement all those cuts?
Here in San Diego, they had, when they saw the cuts coming, this is a $544 million reduction from the state across the judiciary. So all the courts, the 58 courts in the state, had to start cutting their budget accordingly to fit into those numbers. Here they appointed a committee, an ad hoc committee of mostly judges who went, and administrators from the court's executive office who went through it and decided what they could do, what they couldn't do, what they had to let go. ultimately, though, these cuts and these plans were approved by the bench as a whole.
Now, you've got constitutional guarantees to speedy trial timetables on criminal cases, right? So is this really going to impact the civil side? Because you've got to get these folks arraigned, you've got to get them before a judge, they have their rights on that.
Very much so. That's where most people are really going to see it, and most people do contact the justice system through the civil system. Now, most people don't get arrested. The media tends to cover most criminal cases, but the civil system is really where the hit is, and you're right. You're going to see longer wait times to get to trial. With withdrawing all the court reporters from the civil courtrooms, that's going to create a problem, because if you want an actual transcript or record of what happens in your court hearing, you have to go out and hire a private person. That advantages the well-heeled litigant to the expense of the one who isn't as wealthy. So.
What about the impact on local jails? Because we already know that they're feeling the pinch from realignment. That is the transfer of responsibility of some convicted criminals from state prison to county jail. We also know, I think it's about 70% of the people in county jail are people who are waiting for their day in court. So are we going to end up seeing that wait time longer, these jails getting more and more crowded?
I don't think so, for the reasons that Mark said. There are constitutional guarantees that you get a speedy trial and a fair trial. And those deadlines, those imperatives take precedence over everything in the court. So even if they have to shut down the entire civil courtroom operation, they will have to do that to process these criminal cases. Now, yeah, criminal cases can take a long time, but mostly that's because of agreement of both sides. They'll continue it, they'll put it off. But that doesn't necessarily have to happen. You don't have to waive time. You don't have to wait around. You can say, I want my trial now, if you're a defendant. And if that were to happen en masse, that would kind of bring the system to its knees. But I don't think there's going to be an enormous impact on the jail. I think they have their hands full with realignment. But I think in terms of processing these criminal cases, there's a constitutional guarantee that you don't languish in jail just because the court can't find a place or somebody to hear your case.
So on the civil side, are we going to see a lot more mediation? A lot of folks just decide not to go and take this and settle on their own? And
I think the second, there's already a pretty good amount of mediation going on, but I think you're going to see more people opting out of the public court, people who can afford it, opting out of the public court system and going to private judging alternatives, JAMS, Judicate West, and things like that, where you can get your dispute processed and resolved more quickly. That has a disadvantage to all of us because those proceedings are not public, and you can't see. Oftentimes people take these disputes there because they are private, and they don't want them in the public court record.
We're going to move on to our next big story this week. You've probably heard his name by now. Gary Kreep won a very close race for San Diego Superior Court judge. He is a leader among the national birther movement, that is, the movement, which continues to challenge President Barack Obama's citizenship. Kreep narrowly defeated Garland Peede, a prosecutor in the district attorney's office. Here's a clip from our interview with Kreep earlier this week. I asked Kreep why he didn't disclose his birther beliefs in his campaign information.
Take action against San Diego County Bar Association because they ruled me as they told me right out that based upon my legal experience, my legal competence, everything to do with being a lawyer, that I was well qualified. No
I want to
doubt
get back
about
to
that.
the sample ballot, though. Why not tell people this is where I stand on these issues?
Why? Because it's got nothing to do with being a judge.
Do you think it would have affected the outcome of the election if people had known that you don't believe Mr. Obama's a citizen?
Well, there were my opponent's supporters were sure sending out emails saying that. So, obviously, it must not have had too much of an impact.
Mark, does it matter whether Gary Kreep is a birther?
Well, the question is his judgment. He is a judge. So if it's established fact, and certainly as a journalist in this country, this issue has been vetted now for several years. I think any reasonable objective view is that the President of the United States was born in Hawaii. That makes him a U.S. citizen. End of story. We certainly don't vet, and we don't have the time or resources to vet, as Greg well knows, any other issue in this country to the degree this has been. So for someone to continue to say that, oh, we have serious questions about that, well, then we have to have serious questions about his judgment in general.
Now, Greg, you did do a story about Gary Kreep before the election. Also, San Diego City Beat did a story. Was there much other coverage other than that?
No, there wasn't. We did a story that covered all three. There were three contested judicial races. We kind of squeezed them into one story, but that was kind of it for us. City Beat did a couple of stories on it. So there wasn't a whole lot of coverage, but, people have educated themselves and found ways to get information from other sources. You know, they go to the internet, and that has its pitfalls and things like that. But no, this was not, and traditionally judicial races are not real high-profile cases.
And Mr. Kreep's opponent, Garland P., didn't do a very good job of screaming from the rooftops, hey, you need to know this about my opponent. He certainly I didn't see any press releases. I read them every day in the newsroom. I mean, he really didn't run a very good campaign. It was kind of the old-fashioned, I'm endorsed by all these folks, and we'll let it go at that. And usually that works.
And that's what kind of Kreep ran against, was he was sort of an anti-establishment campaign. You know, he's backed by all the downtown interests. I'm not.
Well, and I wonder too, if you looked at Garland P's endorsements, law enforcement, certain Republican notables in the community, maybe some folks would have gone in and thought, I don't know much about this guy, but he looks like the Republican candidate. I'm going to vote for his opponent, when it was a Republican and then much farther to the right.
And in fact, we did see that in a lot of the comments with regard to the story in this interview. We saw people saying that, oh, we thought he was a Democrat. He described himself as a constitutional lawyer. In basically everything he said about him, he left out a lot of his sort of more infamous kinds of issues that he's been attached to. It's not just the birther issue. He's also the lawyer for the Minutemen. He was the lawyer who represented the Marine, who was writing unflattering things about the president. So he's got a past.
So
is
it a stealth campaign that his opponent allowed him to get away with, and the media, to be frank, maybe allowed him to get away with?
I think that's a part of it. He was not really kind of put to the test in a lot of ways in terms of researching his background, and people just kind of went with what they saw on the ballot state, in which he described himself as a constitutional lawyer, which I think matters. But I think those other issues that he's involved in, the birther thing, is getting a lot of play. But I think some of those other issues that he's advocated, particularly when it comes to same-sex marriage, has been involved in cases very much against that. You know, could set up problems for him being a judge, because now there's this whole kind of lineup of potential litigants who fall into the kinds of categories that he has litigated against, who are going to wonder when they go in, am I going to get a fair shot?
And his desires to get into family court, is it not?
Yeah,
is that likely? Tell us about what happens in assignments.
You get assigned to judge school for a while, and you go and learn how to be a judge, and then I think by rules of the state court, everybody has to do a turn in family law, so he can go there. And there aren't many people who want to go there, so if he's willing to go, he might very well end up there.
We are out of time, but I have to get this out there and give you each a few seconds just to respond, because I've been getting a lot of emails from people. Maybe this just is who the majority of people wanted, knowing he is who he is.
Right. Well, you wonder on these down-ballot races, I mean, how many folks didn't vote at all because they didn't know anything at all about them, or simply flipped a coin? You don't know.
I think so. I agree with that. I mean, I think, and he knew that constituency was out there. He went after it. He rallied it, and he got enough of his people out, and the other people did with a low turnout.
Mm-hmm. Greg Moran, thanks for being here. Mark Sauer.
Summer Shakespeare is in full swing at the Old Globe Theater in Balboa Park. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando speaks with the creative team behind Richard III to get some insights into one of Shakespeare's best-known villains.
The real Richard III was likely very different from the character created by William Shakespeare in the 1590s. But on stage and in a series of memorable films, the last king from the House of York has been immortalized as an artist in evil who both fascinates and repels.
Now is the winter of our discontent.
Evil, when it's presented on stage, is charismatic. I think if you actually look at the portraits of tyrants through the ages, from Stalin onwards, they were very charismatic figures because they had, if you like, a guru quality, even though the politics was distasteful.
Lindsay Posner's production of Richard III for the Old Globe Theater's festival stage makes the 400-year-old play resonate for contemporary audiences by tying it into modern politics.
We've been through various historical moments recently with Gaddafi and Hussein, which follows pretty directly both the psychological and, in one sense, the storyline of Richard III, obviously not in its historical context, but in every other way. In terms of the design and the concept, we've tried to make it feel very modern, and that the battle scenes are modern and very exciting. And generally, we've given it a modern, very accessible slant, rather than setting it in a court in the 16th century, which doesn't always work, although sometimes it's nice to look at. I think this will hopefully immediately speak to people in terms of what it's about.
Actor Jay Whittaker played Richard 13 years ago, but finds new pleasure in taking on Shakespeare's complex villain again.
I think the joy of the part and of watching it is seeing him woo the audience and charm them and then turn.
Upon my life, she finds, although I cannot, myself to be a marvelous, proper man.
It begins with his wonderful speeches where he engages the audience and gets the audience to go on his ride.
He definitely gets joy from it, and gets joy in bewildering the audience as much as he does the characters and making them laugh at moments when it might not be completely appropriate to laugh.
Albeit charges for a looking glass, and entertain a score or two of tailors to study fashions to adorn my body.
There's certainly a sense that he sometimes stands outside his actions in order to relish them and take the audience along with him.
Well, shine out, fair sun, till I have bought a glass, that I may see my shadow as I pass.
He's moving the chess pieces constantly, and yet at the same time playing this character that everyone thinks he's not smart enough to be moving all the pieces.
Cousin, thou wast not wont to be so dull. Shall I be plain? I wish the bastard's dead, and I would have it suddenly performed. What sayest thou now? Speak suddenly, be brief.
Your grace may do your pleasure.
Tut, thou art all ice. Thy kindness freezes. Say, have I thy consent that they shall die?
It always seems like he's pushing people. Everyone that he's around, he's pushing them to beyond their comfort zone.
Day, yield me not thy light, nor night thy rest. Be opposite all planets of good luck to my proceeding, if, with dear heart's love, immaculate devotion, holy thoughts, I tender not thy beauteous princely daughter. In her consists my happiness.
And everybody's being manipulated all the time. There's not a single person free from his manipulation.
There's a sense that he knows what he wants from each character in each scene and exerts his will to achieve that. Till, I think, he's crowned, then things start to slip from his grasp and distrust grows and insecurity grows.
He's not enjoying himself anymore. When he's enjoying himself, he wants the audience to be a part of it. Yeah. And then when he's not, they become almost an enemy.
Richard's trajectory as a character proves riveting from start to finish and has enough vigor to still engage contemporary audiences.
I think the way Shakespeare frames a sentence and uses language, it opens up a channel for passion and emotion that is so much deeper and stronger than you can find often in contemporary plays, especially words, the words he chooses.
I'd say with all Shakespeare, if it's done well and it's told with clarity, the story and the plots are the most engaging plot lines in any dramas you will find.
It cannot be avoided but by this. It will not be avoided but by this.
That was KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando. Richard III runs through September 29th at the Globe's Outdoor Festival stage.
Tonight in the public square, more on Gary Kreep, the presumptive Superior Court Judge number 34. He is, of course, the Ramona lawyer who has serious doubts about President Barack Obama's citizenship. I interviewed Gary Kreep twice on this show in the past couple of weeks. Some of you have written to tell me I ought to challenge Mr. Kreep's birther argument more. And many of you question why I would even spend time debating a fact, the fact being President Obama is a U.S. citizen. Well, one viewer wrote, Joanne blew it with this guy. By chasing his delusional belief, she offered him the opportunity to continue his denial of fact by blaming others for his persistence of this delusion. And Edward Tipp said, really lame interview. Oh, well, she was probably just hired for her looks anyway. Well, thanks, Edward. Backhanded or not, I'll take that as a compliment. And Robert Dykstra sent me an email. What his views are on the birth certificate authenticity for Obama are not germane. I am an agnostic on this issue due to the many factors which KPBS and others fail to mention. Well, folks, hit me with your best shot. Send me an email, jfarian@kpbs.org. You can still see both interviews at kpbs.org/evening edition, and you can always send us a tweet or post a comment on Facebook.
Recapping tonight's top stories, trustees of the San Diego Unified School District approved a deal with the teachers union to save nearly 1,500 jobs. The new contract defers pay raises and requires 5 furlough days. But if the governor's proposed tax increases don't pass in November, teachers would likely take even more furlough days. And California lawmakers are considering new restrictions on the mortgage industry. The draft legislation includes a ban on foreclosures when a loan modification is in the works. The state legislature will take up the proposal next week. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us and have a great weekend.